Usually when we try to fix a behavioral problem, whether that's a rebellious kid or a difficult employee, or even just like a bad habit of our own, we kind of expect the solution to be really precise.
Right, like we want it to be like engineering or medicine or something.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged little white line, and the doctor just points and says, there's the problem. It's broken or it's not.
It's clean. It's visible.
Yeah, you put a cast on it, and you fix it.
Yeah.
And we crave that kind of binary simplicity, I think. We want discipline to work the exact same way.
We really do. It's this comforting illusion, right? The idea that human behavior can be just neatly categorized. Like a person acts out, you apply a targeted punishment, and boom, the bad behavior stops.
But then you step out of the textbook and into, the actual messy world of human psychology and neurodevelopment and trauma.
And suddenly that x-ray machine is completely useless.
Utterly useless. We're looking at a behavioral landscape that is just murky. And navigating those muddy waters of human motivation is exactly what we are doing today in this deep dive.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. And hey, if you enjoy exploring these profound, perspective-shifting narratives with us here on Simplified Summary, please take a second to humbly hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, and share your valuable comments down below.
Yeah, your support is basically the engine that keeps this channel going.
It really is what allows us to keep unpacking these incredible stories for you guys. So let's just jump right into it. Today, we are immersing ourselves in an absolute masterpiece of Hindi literature.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, we're exploring Munshi Premchand's short story, Prerna, which translates to inspiration. It's from his legendary Mansarovar collection.
And it completely dismantles our conventional ideas about discipline, doesn't it?
Completely. I mean, it's the story of this rebellious, basically uncontrollable youth who is ultimately transformed, but not by the rod or expulsion or strict rules.
Right. It's by the crushing weight of an unexpected love.
Yeah. It's such a brilliant character study.
Yeah.
And it's told from the perspective of a seasoned school teacher, right?
Yes, exactly. This narrator, he's a man who takes his profession incredibly seriously. Like, he really understands the mechanics of education.
But then he runs headfirst into a brick wall.
A total anomaly in his 10 years of teaching. And that wall is a student named Surya Prakash.
And like calling Surya Prakash a difficult student feels like calling a hurricane a light breeze.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheer scale of this kid's mischief is staggering.
Oh, totally. He wasn't just throwing paper airplanes or passing notes. Surya Prakash was an institutional menace.
An institutional menace. I love that.
Seriously, he actually formed a highly organized gang of pranksters within the school, and he gave them this incredibly audacious title.
Right, the Kudai Fajdars, right?
Yes, the Army of God. And under this banner, he practically terrorized the school peons and the orderlies.
The adult staff were literally terrified of a teenager.
They were. He was basically running a syndicate in the schoolyard.
The audacity of this kid. I mean, there is this one incident with a school inspector that just blew my mind when I read it.
Oh, the inspection day.
Yes. So the principal gets word that this high-ranking inspector is coming, and naturally, he wants the school to look flawless.
Right, standard administrative defensive maneuver. You want to present this illusion of perfect control.
Exactly. So he orders all the boys to arrive half an hour early to go over the rules, make a pristine impression. But Surya Prakash just decides to flex his muscle and completely shatter that illusion.
It's so bold.
10 o'clock rolls around, the inspector sits down, and there is not a single student in the entire school. It is an absolute ghost town.
The administration must have been sweating bullets.
Oh, panicking. And then, magically, right at 11 o'clock, all the students suddenly pour into the building like a cage has just been unlocked.
He orchestrated a mass synchronized boycott just to embarrass the principal.
And it worked beautifully. The inspector leaves this scathing report, officially documenting that the school's discipline is atrocious.
And the fallout from that is massive. The principal is utterly humiliated. The teachers are facing severe reprimands, and everyone in the building knows exactly who pulled the strings.
But no one snitches, right?
Not a single student dares to utter Surya Prakash's name. Despite all the heavy questioning and threats from the staff, his psychological control over his peers is absolute.
Wow. They fear his retribution way more than they fear the teachers. And it gets so deeply personal with the narrator, too.
Oh, the frog incident.
Yes. The teacher opens his desk drawer one day, right in the middle of a lecture, and a massive frog jumps out.
Just chaos in the classroom.
Total chaos. And the teacher looks over, and Surya Prakash is just sitting there at his desk with his head down, smiling this quiet, triumphant, untouchable smile.
The teacher is pushed to the absolute brink of his sanity at this point. Out of sheer boiling frustration, he looks at Surya Prakash and tells him directly, "You will never pass this class in your entire life."
And Surya Prakash, without a single ounce of anxiety, just calmly replies that he has always passed and he will pass this time too.
And the crazy part is he actually pulls it off.
It's insane. The teacher is hyper-vigilant during the final exams. He's practically standing over the kid's shoulder to prevent any cheating.
But when the papers are graded, Surya Prakash scores the highest marks in both of the teacher's subjects.
The teacher is dead certain he somehow broke in and stole the question papers. But he can't prove a single thing.
Nope. The handwriting is a perfect match. The answers are flawless. The principal and the teacher are just left completely paralyzed.
Yeah. They're forced to swallow the bitter pill and advance him to the next grade.
Yeah, which highlights a catastrophic failure in their institutional system. They even debate expelling him, but they realize that kicking him out would basically be a public broadcast of their own incompetence.
Right. You have 22 experienced, educated adults completely bested and held hostage by a 13-year-old boy.
It's wild.
You know, listening to this, Surya Prakash sounds less like a typical classroom bully and more like a bored, highly destructive computer hacker.
That is a really great analogy.
Right, because he clearly has this immense, undeniable intelligence, incredible leadership skills, and a mind for complex logistics. I mean, coordinating a synchronized school-wide boycott is not something your average kid can pull off.
Not at all.
But because the traditional school system completely fails to engage his specific type of intellect, all that raw brilliance is just channeled entirely into dismantling the system itself.
Because for a hacker personality like that, the traditional deterrents just become variables in a game.
Yes, exactly.
Standard discipline relies really heavily on a fear of consequences, right? Like a fear of losing your standing in the institution.
But when a student places zero value on the institution, threatening to remove him from it holds absolutely no weight.
Precisely. When authority figures try to impose control through intimidation, it merely validates his rebellion. The friction isn't a punishment for him.
The friction is the reward.
Exactly.
It really makes you rethink the whole concept of a quote-unquote bad kid. We always assume they just need stricter rules, a tighter leash, maybe some public shaming.
Yep. But the teacher here is just stuck in this miserable loop of trying to out-punish a kid who thrives on punishment.
Right. But eventually, the narrative shifts because the teacher gets transferred to another school.
Yes, and this brings us to an incredibly poignant, quiet scene at the railway station.
It really is a masterclass in the tragedy of unspoken human emotion.
The teacher is leaving town, and the student body has thrown him this massive farewell feast. They all show up at the train platform to see him off.
It's a highly emotional moment. Everyone is crying, including the teacher himself.
And then, squeaking his eyes over the crowd, he spots him, standing at the very back, trying to remain unnoticed.
And he's looking surprisingly remorseful, right?
Yeah.
With actual tears in his eyes. It's Surya Prakash, the menace himself.
The teacher feels this sudden, overwhelming urge to break down the years of resentment. He wants to walk through the crowd, embrace the boy, and just offer him some genuine, fatherly words of advice.
He senses that Surya Prakash is standing there waiting for exactly that kind of grace.
But ego gets in the way.
Yeah. Neither of them says a single word. The train whistle blows, it starts moving, and the teacher just watches that solitary teenage figure shrink into the distance.
It's a missed connection that haunts the teacher for years.
He carries that regret with him as his own life takes a pretty dramatic, turbulent trajectory.
Oh, very dramatic. The narrative follows the teacher as he travels to England, studies there for 3 years, and returns to India to become a highly successful college principal.
He climbs the bureaucratic ladder rapidly. He goes from a frustrated village teacher to a major political player.
He forms a very close alliance with the provincial education minister, who essentially hands over the reins of educational policy to him.
But this new power leads to a massive ideological collision.
Right. A proposal is introduced in the Legislative Council to make education legally mandatory for all children.
And the teacher, acting through the minister, vehemently opposes it, which sounds totally counterintuitive for an educator, right? Opposing mandatory schooling.
It does. But Premchand uses this character to highlight a really brutal socioeconomic reality of that era in colonial India.
Right. The teacher argues that in Europe, where, physical materialism and economic competition are fierce, compulsory education fits the societal model.
But in India, forcing deeply impoverished parents to send their kids to school is a profound injustice.
Because they rely on their children's physical labor in the fields just to survive.
Exactly. Unless the state is willing to step up and provide a living wage to compensate that starving family for the lost labor of their child, forcing them into a classroom by law is essentially starving them by law.
Wow. And not to mention, he points out that the schools themselves are severely understaffed with underpaid, unqualified teachers, so they can't even offer a decent standard of moral or intellectual guidance anyway.
It's a fascinating philosophical stance. Regardless of where anyone stands on the modern debate of state-mandated education, you can see his argument is rooted in deep empathy for the agrarian poor.
For sure. I mean, we are just presenting what the text says here, obviously. But taking that stance publicly in a politically volatile environment ignites an absolute firestorm.
It really makes you think about modern corporate or political scapegoating.
Oh, yeah. One day, you are the golden child, the trusted advisor, setting the agenda. The next day, the political winds shift, the public demands a villain, and you are entirely abandoned.
The backlash against the teacher is immense. He is publicly labeled a traitor to progress, an enemy of the nation.
The political pressure reaches a boiling point, and the very minister he advised just throws him to the wolves.
He's forced to resign in disgrace. Stripped of his status, his income, and his life's work, he loses his entire professional identity.
And then the universe delivers just a devastating personal blow.
Yeah. His beloved wife, who was his absolute anchor through all this turmoil, suddenly passes away from a heart condition before he can even say a proper goodbye.
He is left completely broken.
Yeah.
So he abandons society altogether, retreating to a quiet, isolated village on the banks of the Ganges.
He sheds his tailored suits and goes back to basics, running a humble little school for village children under the shade of a tree.
Wearing simple cotton robes, right?
Right.
A traditional dhoti and kurta.
He totally embraces the life of an ascetic, which sets the stage for one of the most visually and emotionally powerful scenes in the entire story.
Oh, this scene gave me chills.
Right. So one afternoon, a high-end car pulls up to the dust of this little village school. The door opens, and out steps the district's deputy commissioner, a man of immense administrative power and authority.
And the teacher is immediately self-conscious, deeply embarrassed by his simple clothes and his fallen status.
He hesitates, unsure of how to even address this high-ranking official.
But the deputy commissioner doesn't pause. He walks straight up to the ascetic teacher, bows deeply, and touches his feet in reverence.
It is Surya Prakash.
The boy who used to orchestrate boycotts and put frogs in desk drawers is now running the entire district.
It completely upends how we view power dynamics.
It really does. You have this guy who holds the authority to command the district police force, who controls the local government, and yet he instantly reverts to the posture of a humble disciple the second he sees his old teacher in the dirt.
Because it speaks to the deep cultural weight of the guru in Indian society. In that framework, the position of the teacher transcends material wealth, or political exile, or bureaucratic rank.
Surya Prakash's gesture is this beautiful, profound validation of the teacher's inherent worth. The system discarded him, but his student still views him as sacred.
And Surya Prakash tells him he has been quietly keeping tabs on him for years, waiting for the right moment to seek forgiveness for his past behavior.
The teacher is just utterly stunned. He looks at this refined, powerful man and asks the question we're all thinking, what on earth happened?
What miraculous blessing came down from the sky to transform a teenage syndicate leader into a deputy commissioner?
Right, and this is where Surya Prakash introduces the true catalyst for his profound change.
And it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a strict boarding school. It was a little boy named Mohan.
Mohan was Surya Prakash's cousin, just 8 or 9 years old.
Shortly after the teacher transferred away, Mohan enrolled in the school. But the boy was in a really tough spot. He couldn't handle the rough environment of the school hostel, and his other relatives just refused to take him in.
So Surya Prakash, in this entirely unexpected moment of fierce advocacy, demands to rent a private room and takes the boy in to live with him.
And caring for Mohan was not a simple task. He was a deeply vulnerable child.
Motherless, frail, highly susceptible to illness.
Constantly battling fevers and severe headaches, he required constant, gentle attention.
It's like one of those aggressively wild rescue dogs you hear about, the ones that chew through chain link fences, snap at everyone, and just simply cannot be tamed by any trainer.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
But then you introduce a tiny, fragile, orphaned kitten into their space, and suddenly that exact same wild, aggressive dog becomes Fiercely gentle, incredibly patient, and perfectly behaved just to ensure that tiny creature stays safe.
Because that aggression in the dog or in Surya Prakash was just boundless, misdirected energy.
Right.
You give that student a fragile life to protect, and his internal hierarchy completely shifts. It is the psychological mechanism of externalization and displaced ego.
I love how you put that. Displaced ego.
Yeah, when Surya Prakash was focused solely on himself, he fought the institution because it constrained him. But the moment he became solely responsible for Mohan, his ego was entirely displaced by duty.
And the transformation in his daily life is staggering. I mean, the teenager who used to sleep until 9 a.m., skipping class to plot his next prank, suddenly starts waking up at the crack of dawn.
He's warming Mohan's milk, gently washing his face, and taking him for slow morning walks to build his health.
He even abandons his own vices. He completely stops going to the late-night theater.
And the reason why it's so touching, he came home at 3 a.m. one night after a show and found little Mohan sitting up in bed, wide awake in the dark.
Oh, right. And when Surya Prakash asked why he was up, Mohan simply replied, "I couldn't sleep without you."
Surya Prakash never went to the theater again after that.
Wow. He even starts believing in God, purely because Mohan innocently asked him one day if God was always with them, protecting them from harm.
And Surya Prakash, this cynical, hardened prankster, couldn't bring himself to mock that pure, desperate faith.
He had to become the infallible protector that Mohan believed he was. He started studying for hours every night, just to be able to tutor the boy.
He didn't need a principal to discipline him anymore. His profound love for his cousin became an internal disciplinarian, far stricter and far more demanding than any school system could ever engineer.
It almost looks like he didn't need a tighter leash at all. He just desperately needed something to protect.
He needed to be essential.
Exactly. But of course, Premchand does not let this beautiful redemption story exist without immense pain. Summer vacation arrives, and it tests this new dynamic in just the cruelest way possible.
It really does. Surya Prakash's college friends relentlessly pressure him to join them on a holiday trip to Kashmir.
He reluctantly agrees, leaving Mohan in the care of an uncle, assuming, a few weeks apart will be totally fine.
But Mohan misses him with a desperation that only a lonely child can feel. He wants to make his older cousin impossibly proud.
So, to impress his hero upon his return, this fragile little boy starts studying obsessively. He tries to complete an entire year's worth of dense schoolwork in just 2 months.
He pushes his frail, sickly body way beyond its limits, and his immune system just crashes. He contracts a severe case of typhoid fever.
Word reaches Surya Prakash in Kashmir, and he cuts his trip short, rushing back frantically across the country.
But the fever has already ravaged the boy's body. Surya Prakash arrives only to find Mohan on his deathbed.
The story gives us Mohan's final words to his older cousin,
Right.
and they completely shatter you.
They really do.
The little boy looks up at him, struggling to breathe, and says, "You went on a tour of Kashmir. I am going on a tour of the sky."
The devastating innocence of a child conceptualizing his own death as a journey to match his cousin's vacation. It's a line that carries the full weight of the tragedy.
So heavy. And shortly after, Mohan passes away.
Yes.
You sit with that, the tragic reality of a child literally working himself to death just to be worthy of a former delinquent. And you expect it to completely destroy Surya Prakash.
You'd think so, right? You expect him to spiral back into chaos, to just burn the world down in his grief.
But he does the exact opposite.
And this synthesis of grief and motivation brings us to the core theme, the very title of the story. Prerna, or inspiration.
Right. Mohan's physical life ended, but his unfulfilled childhood dreams, his innocent absolute love, and his unwavering belief in his cousin transformed into Surya Prakash's eternal Prerna.
Surya Prakash reveals to the teacher that he took all of that unbearable sorrow and forced it into an unbreakable will.
He dedicated the rest of his life to passing the most grueling administrative exams, climbing the ranks of government, and achieving undeniable greatness entirely to honor Mohan's memory.
He tells the teacher that if Mohan hadn't become his guide, he would undoubtedly be sitting in a jail cell right now.
He views that little boy not just as a tragic memory, but as his guiding deity, his Ishtadev.
And the teacher just sits there, absorbing this, realizing the profound limitation of his own profession.
Yeah, his sophisticated pedagogical methods, his strict textbooks, his institutional authority, none of it could even scratch the surface of a rebellious soul.
But the pure, dependent love of a sick child, completely rewired a human being's destiny.
It really forces us to completely reevaluate where human motivation actually comes from. I mean, we spend so much of our lives convinced that to succeed, we need to be strictly molded.
We think we need a harsh disciplinarian, a rigid morning routine, or some punishing structure to force us into being productive.
We obsess over the mechanics of punishment and reward. But Prerna strips all of that away, showing us that true, enduring transformation rarely comes from the fear of a stick.
No, it almost always comes from an external focus. Finding someone or something to care for so deeply that the very idea of failing them becomes impossible to bear.
It shifts our entire paradigm from asking, how do I control this person, to asking, how do I give this person a purpose?
Which leaves you wondering about the massive systems we've built to handle people who step out of line.
All right. It makes you look at our modern justice systems, our prisons, our juvenile detention centers.
If radical responsibility and deep connection have the power to reform a destructive individual far better than radical punishment ever could, what does that mean for how we structure rehabilitation today?
Are we entirely backwards in how we handle the people we label as menaces? Are we just building tighter cages when we should be figuring out how to give them a flock to protect?
A profound and necessary question to carry forward into how we view justice and education today.
It truly is. Thank you all for joining us on this incredible deep dive. And once again, to our Simplified Summary audience, if this story shifted your perspective, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like on the video, and share in the comments down below.
Yeah, let us know who or what serves as the prerna in your own life. What is the external force that keeps you moving forward?
We would absolutely love to read your stories. Until next time, remember that the muddy waters of human behavior often hide the deepest, most beautiful truths. Take care.